The place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Tuesday, November 18th, 2025, and this is episode 1099 of Living Free in Tennessee, and it's a Monday-Tuesday show. It's a Tuesday show. Monday show on a Tuesday. What's up, Pack Rat and Tori and Pippinized? Good to see you in the live stream. Guys, Anne, I don't think I've seen your name before. I also don't know how to say the middle part of that. So you're going to have to send me a phonetic pronunciation if you ever want me to say it. Anyway, guys, welcome to the live stream. If you have comments or questions or want to hear more about something while we do this live stream, just put the word question or comments in all caps, and I will do my best to work it in. Debbie, welcome to the live stream. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the power of showing up nervous. And I'm going to tell you a funny story that happened to me yesterday as part of that, but also about being fearless on your homestead or to just follow your dreams. I think fearless not in just getting started, but also fearless in taking a really good, hard look at the things that are moving you forward or holding you back when you're pursuing your dreams. And it was at the last meetup and brought the cornbread. Welcome to the live stream. It was delicious cornbread. I think we ate it for a week after that. And I will admit I ate some cornbread, even though I don't usually eat starches. So it was delicious. Okay, so today that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to dive deeply into what it means to be fearless and why you should think about doing things that make you a little bit uncomfortable, because that's part of pursuing things that make you fearless. Before we do that, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and I have a confession to make. You cannot sign up today. Today, I was planning to have you launch the sign up, but my website is launching and they haven't pulled the trigger because things happened. Somebody got sick, went to the hospital it's like we've been trying to launch this site for 3 months. And every time it's like, we're right there. There's a technical problem. We're right there. There's a technical problem. We're right there. Somebody went to the hospital. I hope that somebody is feeling much better now. But it just, didn't coincide with the schedule of this show. So hopefully by the time you hear the audio of this show, it is launched. And when it launches, then I can go in there and set up the event so you can RSVP for it. And that is December 20th here at the Holler Hub in the Holler Homestead at Base Camp Lodge at 12 p.m., which is the Saturday before Christmas. We are going to have our annual December 20th or Saturday before Christmas LFTN Spring Reception. What I do for that is cook something delicious. My plan this year is to cook a whole lamb. I have one in my freezer as a whole lamb that just got processed. He was a small little dude, so I was like, hey, we'll just leave him whole, and I'll see about roasting him over the barbecue or something for the dinner. I was actually talking to Chef Brett about that this weekend, and he was like, oh, I got an idea. So I have to follow up with him on that one, but it'll be delicious. We'll have some other side dishes that I provide with that. And usually people bring something to share with everybody to this event, but I will ask you to sign up so we have an idea of head count, and that will be at livingfreeintennessee.com. It will be way easier to find on the new site than on the old site. But if I put it on the old site right now and you RSVP and then they pull the trigger, which should be happening this afternoon, assuming we don't have another technical problem, then I have things on the old site and I have to port it over to the new site. And then that's a whole extra step and a whole extra opening for me to lose data. We do not want to lose data. Don't want a surprise guest. That would be not a good thing. So just check it out later this week and get signed up if you're planning to come. And the types of things usually people bring to share, they might bring a box of cookies that they particularly like that they bought at the store that are Christmas themed, or they might bring their Aunt Helen's pickled beets recipe. Or one year, last year, we had somebody bring some really good bread with meat on it stuff. That was good. I've had people bring little appetizers they make, lots of sweets. It's a Christmas thing. So it's really meant to be bites. You can bring a box of chocolates, whatever you want to bring. It's going to be fun. The other thing we do at this is, if you feel like it and you can do it without spending money, you make a little handmade ornament from something you find around your place, and we hang it on the tree. And every year I've gotten an interesting collection of things from bullet casings to walnut shells, pine cones, all sorts of different stuff. One year, Nancy made these ornaments with ball like canning jar lids, and then they printed out pictures of livestock and put a School Bell Farm on them. So that was pretty neat. So there's lots of different Dawn, who does like the fire starters, did little mini fire starters, and so far we haven't accidentally lit them and lit the tree on fire. Oh, we wouldn't do that. They're not that kind of fire starter. But if you did hold a match up, they'd actually work. But yeah, I no longer put candles on my Christmas tree. We'll have that discussion. I used to, but we'll have that discussion another time. I have become very respectful of how flammable stick-built houses are. So there you go. Anyway, that's the reception, December 20th. I hope you can come. Packrat saying worldwide Cloudflare problems today. Anyway, yeah, I know. ChatGPT was not working this morning, and I was wanting to work with it on some Hollow Roast emails, and it was giving me a weird error, and then I realized Cloudflare was out, so I went and I used Gemini for a while just for kicks. Now, I have my ChatGPT like trained to do some very specific things that Gemini is not trained to do, and I have all those documents. I could feed it into Gemini. It wasn't worth it, but it was kind of fun playing with that because I've been really focused on learning how ChatGPT works and how to identify when it's giving me false data. Like I have to have it cite things and go see the things it cites and verify it really says there, what it says there, that sort of thing. But also, these are all tools that I think it's important to use so you know how they work. So you can also see when other people are using them. Because to me, like y'all know when I have ChatGPT write a post on the internet, right? I had Gemini write everything for this show just for the fun of it. And I have my actual podcast notes written by hands in front of me, but the printed ones that are going out, I was like, you know what? We're just going to go with this. And I'm sure you can tell that. You can tell by the image that was made. You can tell by the posts that were made. And it does write differently than ChatGPT. So it was an interesting little experiment. And for me, that's just a way I learned. Anyway, I am sure some people are melting down because their favorite tools didn't work today. But I felt like it was a really good time to move firewood around and not worry about it. And I also am very good at writing marketing copy. So the Hollow Roast email is not done with an assist. My philosophy this year has been use the AI assist in everything I'm doing this year. And then if it doesn't work, just do it myself. But in that way, I learn how it works and it learns how I work a little bit. But then also that helps me understand how to use it as a tool rather than be used by it like a tool, so to speak. What's that have to do with Christmas? Nothing really. But Packrat brought up the Cloudflare outage, and I had also noticed that this morning. Anyway, I hope to see you guys at the Christmas reception. It usually goes till about 4 o'clock. A couple of our longer-term Holler Neighbor people might hang out longer. We'll see. If you are in the LFTN Christmas stocking exchange and you put on your little note that you were going to be at my party, then your person is at my party too. And so we can hand stockings in person. So so I have somebody who I already know is coming to the party, even though they haven't signed up, as my secret stocking Santa. I love to say that, secret stocking Santa. So we also have 2 sponsors today. First one is the WealthSteadingPodcast, and you can get those episodes at investablewealth.com. John approaches building wealth from a homesteader's perspective, which means he doesn't get swayed by all the things going on in the news designed to make us upset and angry and trigger a response so that people can control how we react. Rather, he keeps separate from that and analyzes things with his methodology, which he shares on his podcast. If you go to his early episodes, you'll understand his principles of investing, but he puts out 1 or 2 episodes a week. And even if you're not ready to invest your money because you haven't saved enough, you haven't paid off your debt, there's like some things you want to do before you start investing or learning how to invest. It's a great place to start learning about it so that when you're ready, you're more ready. Check it out, investablewealth.com. Just navigate to podcast and check that out. Or on your podcatcher, you can get it by just searching WealthSteading and not, like homesteading, but WealthSteading podcast. It'll come right up. Our second sponsor of today's show helps you keep your food fresher for longer, and that is Discount Mylar Bags. But they're more than just a Mylar bag provider. They also have other solutions for food storage and food preservation. Check them out, discountmylarbags.com. And if you are starting a business and need packaging, I would reach out to Toby at discountmylarbags.com and see what he thinks about being able to help you. I know that when the tariffs for China went through the roof, it affected his business, and as anybody's who is depending on importing, right? So I know that we are also seeing some changes in tariffs, and that may change what's going on over there. So check them out, discountmylarbags.com. If you are a member, there is a discount. Now it's time for our first segment of today's show. That's Tales from the Prepper Pantry, where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. I got a text message from Dawn Gorham from the Gorham Homestead before November started, and she said, hey, let's do Pantry Challenge Month this month. Now, the interesting thing about choosing November as a Pantry Challenge Month is you're not allowed to go to the grocery store and buy stuff. That's like part of it. Like you just live from what you stored. I have always added the adage, though, that we can buy from farms and we can trade for things, right? But also, I have never not reordered my resupply during a Pantry Challenge Month if it was part of something that was already under plan, right? So not like, oh, I ran out of something, I have to resupply it, but hey, this is the month I buy these things or I obtain these things. For example, I'm buying a whole cow in about a week. Cow and 3/4, actually, almost 2 cows. So, and that's directly from the farmer, so it falls into that segment. But if it was my plan to buy 300 pounds of beef in November anyway, that would count as okay because you've already sort of set up the system. Anyway, so we have been mostly living from the pantry, but I totally cheated. And on farm to table dinner day, we obtained and cooked 2 cauliflower crust pizzas. So she's going to win this year because I decided it was very important to feed us. And there was a lot going on getting ready for the farm to table dinner, including I did about 12 hours of preparatory cooking for the meal, which may seem crazy, but that's how long it took. And part of that had to do with obtaining, not just cooking, but obtaining supplies from multiple locations, which is why I'd love to have our buying club up and running by the next time we do the farm to table dinner, because we're planning to do them quarterly next year. But I also, after the event, was kind of tired. I know you guys could not conceive of that happening, but it's true. And I pulled what I call the broccoli ripcord. So this year at the farmer's market, I was successful with broccoli this year growing it. But also Michael, he's one of the vendors there, was successful with growing broccoli. And I bought a lot of broccoli and a lot of cauliflower from him. I kept thinking I was going to put that cauliflower up in the freezer, and we kept eating it that fast. So I think this year, what that means is for this year's garden, more cauliflower, because I also got cauliflower this year. So I was blanching and freezing broccoli in the hot time of the year just to have it put away. And we ended up in a situation where we had a meat to cook and we had some peppers that Rick gave us. And then that was going to be dinner. We had TSP leftover sausages also. So that was the meat. And they were from Jack's event. And Dorothy had sent them up to me through Angie. And then we had some onions and stuff we were sauteing. And I was like, we'll just do a 1-pot meal because it's a busy day. Mondays I go to choir anyway. And I ended up going to a county meeting last night. So extra time out of the day. And I just felt like there wasn't enough in the pot. And I ran out to the freezer and I pulled the package of blanched broccoli and just threw it straight in there. And it was delicious. So sometimes when we've done the work in the past, it's really nice to have that pay off in the pantry. And then, of course, Rick gave me a ton of peppers on my way home from Jack's, and I was planning to cut them up and freeze them, but we're pretty much going to be through the peppers just fresh before they ever need to be frozen. I do have peppers put up in the freezer. That's another thing that I could grow a lot more bell peppers for us here, and we will go through them as long as we can get them processed. And the big challenge is they all come ripe right about the time Self-Reliance Festival happens. And I'm like, all in on Self-Reliance Festival. And then I'm not all in on processing peppers. Other than that, we've gotten ready for the whole cow. The whole cow will arrive. Well, I buy the cow on November 20th. It'll be a couple weeks after that. And then we have that cow. And then the other cow I share with somebody. She only wants a quarter of it. So I said, that's fine. We go through about 2 cows a year anyway here. Like, we're almost done. Like, this is great. It worked out perfectly. We're almost done with last year's cows. That means that we went through 2 cows. Just for the record. And that's okay. That's meat we've fed to y'all when you've come here. That's meat we eat here. We have a lot of visitors that just kind of wander through. And if you eat meatloaf, guess what? It's from the cow. And we did not have a pig last year. This year we have a pig too. So I have a feeling we're going to have a meat backlog, but I have less lamb because I oversold my lamb this year. So that means that we won't have all the lamb. I had a lot of ground lamb last year too. And we have 4 packages of that left. And then on the new, I have a few lamb chops left and a roast or 2, but no legs. On the new lamb, I have a single lamb for us for the year. And then I have not the one that I'm serving at the dinner, of course, in December, but I have one that's just for us. So those have legs. So I'm sure we will have 2 legs of lamb at some point. And I also have rib roasts that are Frenched. So that's going to be pretty cool too. That's probably Christmas dinner. And then I go out of town after Christmas. As you guys know, we shut down from about December 20th this year through the new year is what the plan is. Like December 20th will be my last official LFTN thing. And then I take a few weeks off to get ready for 2026. Next up, we have the shopping report from Joe, except for Joe hasn't done a shopping report since June 7th. So I have a question. Does anybody else want to start doing a shopping report? Because I think it would be interesting to continue to track inflation at the grocery store, which is complete, like for real things that you would really buy, which is completely separate from the consumer reporting index that you get. Anybody? Anybody? Okay. Email me, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com if you are interested, and write LFTN shopping report in the subject line. What you need to do is go to Aldi once a week and check in on the price of a 2x4. And if you feel like checking on ethanol-free gas at a gas station near you, that's great. We'll have to reset benchmarks for your location because Aldi, you may not know this, charges different things in different markets. So we have to adjust to your market. And so Joe did it for years. He retired. He doesn't go to the store once a week anymore. It's understandable. It is probably time to pass that torch on. Next, we have a frugality tip from Margot. And she says, I was randomly looking at Etsy and saw someone selling something I was interested in and that it was local to me. I messaged them and asked about a local pickup and cash price. They were very interested in cash money with pickup, and I saved money on my purchase. So ask. It'll never kill you and might save you a few dollars. And that's because Etsy charges like 30% if you use their system, right? So that is a really good tip from Margot as we go into the holiday season. Our final segment before we get into the real topic of today's show is Operation Independence. And this is where we talk about building local ongoing revenue into the world here. And we've been really going through a transition, as you know, turning Base Camp Lodge from a month-to-month rental into a place where we can gather and have classes and have campers and those sorts of things. And we're heading into the winter months. I was augmenting by throwing it up on Airbnb, and that is pretty much dried up right now. So I think that's because this area dries up at this time of year until about May, when the lake opens again and people start going on the boats. It's just people are less, it's not exactly the winter destination, right? So what we're doing now is I am booking events for next year for anybody who wants to run a class there. So like think Combat Midwife has a class at Base Camp Lodge March 7th. I will be talking about that in my weekly email, so you know how to sign up. She has a 50% off sale going, I think, through Black Friday, but maybe through the end of the month. And that's an example. She's renting it to do her class, and she has the upstairs and downstairs because we have a downstairs classroom, and then the upstairs can also be used. And it's going to be a pretty cool class. She does a class unlike anybody else, where it's all about helping women in austere situations. So if you have an emergency and a tornado comes through and you can't get to the hospital, and then your wife goes into labor, what do you do? What if you're the only one there? What if there's no power? How do you keep things sterile? What should you have on hand for that situation? That sort of thing. And it's a hands-on class, so it's not just theoretical. So that kind of class from the network are what we're really interested in booking at Base Camp Lodge. Of course, we're doing our own class schedule. The Living Free in Tennessee Homesteading Workshop will, of course, be there and here. We go back and forth, but because we have the upstairs for that, for the LFTN workshop, it also changes how the workshop gets laid out as well. So it's been a real boon, and we're starting to add RV spaces there, so people can come through and be here for a little bit of time, but not necessarily go into the lodge, right? So that's cool. I believe I will be offering a bedroom for like a month-to-month rental for a month or two this winter. If somebody's in the area, I might put it on Furnished Finders. I'm not sure how I'm going to market it exactly, for $800 a month, which includes all utilities and internet and water and all of those things. And we're going to have a Christmas reception on December 20th, for example, right? So occasional meetups happen there as well. So that's happening. It's just a bedroom rental. It's a shared housing situation where you just don't have somebody up in your face all the time, but we do come there and use it. So that's something that I'll discuss in detail if anybody's interested in renting the other bedroom there. But that also includes access, of course, to a washer and dryer and that sort of thing. So I'll be offering that as well, just to see if somebody's interested. I'm not sure we want to do more than a month at a time, maybe 2 months, because as we get into like over January, February, past those dates, we're back into there's quarterly farm to table dinners and other stuff going on, which is not real ideal for a person living. Like, it's kind of annoying if you're living there too, to have your entire house taken over for events. So it's more of a while we're not doing events sort of thing. Anyway, that's where we're thinking right now. The herbalism class that was supposed to be on December 6th will be moved to next year. I just spoke with the teacher, and the timeline is really not working for her, and it's really not working for me. And I was kind of relieved because we were getting awful close to Christmas on that one. So we'll be announcing a different date as we go into 2026. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show, which is the power of showing up nervous. And really, if you think about it, it's about fearless living. If you are going to have a homestead, it's really important to get better at fearless living, and by which I mean living. It used to be it was just living. It's not healthy to live your life in fear and what if yourself to death and not do the things you want to do. Because next thing you know, you can't do the things you want to do because you haven't done anything and you got too old for it, right? So I'm kind of looking at two sides of go for it, which is something we say to each other all the time, right? Like, okay, I think I might want to plant a pumpkin patch. Go for it. That's what you're going to get in our Telegram community or in the Facebook group. Because what's it going to hurt for you to plant a few pumpkin seeds? Like, the worst thing that happens is nothing happens. The best thing that happens is next thing you know, you're running a pumpkin patch with a corn maze and apple pie for sale and a hayride, and you're making a bunch of money seasonally in the fall. You don't know which way it's going to go. And a lot of times what stops people from getting started is it's like, okay, so I plant the pumpkins and then I have all these pumpkins and then I sell them all. And then people get mad at me because I don't have any more pumpkins. Like, there's always some sort of I'm too successful, fear of failure thing that happens. And that's not a thing. That's not the thing. The other fear is I've promised people a certain number of turkeys. I know people in this situation. I've promised people a certain number of turkeys. Some of my turkeys didn't do so well. Now what? Okay, well, if something like that happens, you communicate, right? You guys have heard me communicate when something like that, like, oh, my roaster broke. It's going to be a week till I can ship your coffee. Sorry. It sucks for me too when that happens. I don't like it, but it's not the end of the world, and any customers I've lost because of that were probably buying coffee for the wrong reason, I guess. I don't even know. Um, so there are a couple sides of go for it if you think about it. And I was really thinking about it yesterday because when we did the farm to table dinner, I kicked it off with we've been wanting to do this for years. Like I've literally wanted to do what we did this weekend for a decade. And a lot of things stopped me from doing it, and nothing should have stopped me for doing it that long. It's really like I had all the pieces we needed for a farm to table dinner for a really long time. I could have literally done one at the community center around the corner. And I already had the chef contact, right? I have multiple chef contacts now who could, maybe hear this and reach out to me because maybe you want to be the chef for one of these. And I just didn't do it. Part of it was confidence in my own capacity to produce food. But if you've been to my spring workshop, I cook most of the food. Not all of it, most of it. And maybe last year a little less of it. But in general, I am pre-cooking a lot of things because it's much easier to run an event like that with the prep work done. Yeah, Ian Sisk is like, exactly, Ian. That was not a hint at you at all. By the way, the reason I asked you the question about what I traded you on the barter blanket is I wanted to make sure I delivered on what I was supposed to. So I'm just waiting for you to tell me when the time is right. But I also didn't know if I did have a cocktail that night and I was like, did I order a chef? I guess I didn't. But, that could have been put on the barter blanket too, just saying. Anyway, so the two forms of courage or go for it that I'm talking about, or fearlessness, is professional courage, right? Then that's the courage just to launch and then honestly critique what you're doing. And then the second one is personal courage, and that is to go outside of your comfort zone and stand up. I can remember growing up when somebody asked me my opinion about something, I would just tell them my opinion and it seemed normal. And if their opinion was not the same as my opinion, they'd say, oh, well, my opinion is this other thing. Sometimes there'd be some tension. Sometimes there wouldn't be tension, but it was just sort of a natural part of conversation. Now, it seems to be that if you say what your opinion is and somebody doesn't agree with it, now they go silent because they don't know what to say. They know that they didn't like the words that just came out of your mouth. That's what they know. And some people will fight back and try to win an argument rather than seek to understand why my opinion is that way. If we all seek to understand, we go further. Does it mean we change our opinions? Maybe, maybe not. But you never will learn if your opinions are not challenged, right? So we'll start with the courage to launch and critique, because might as well do an after action report because we just did a farm to table dinner here and it went really well. Did it go perfectly? No. So for me, it was a big go for it moment because I didn't know if people would be willing to spend money for a ticket. And it probably felt like a lot of money to people, but it was a different kind of culinary experience than you can get at most farm to table dinners. Everything's made from scratch. We sourced as much as possible from local sources, and we kept the head count small. The head count was 16. Well, there were 14 seated people. Yeah, 14 seated people. And then we had extra staff from what we needed because I didn't know what we needed, and so all the Holler neighbors pitched in who were in town. So I think the go for it moment of just making it happen and refusing to let it fail was part of it, because when I launched tickets, 0 tickets sold. 0 tickets sold for a really, really long time. I was getting questions from the chef. Are you going to pull the plug on this or are we just going for it? And I was like, we're going to go for it because worst case scenario, I pay you your fee and I have a really good dinner for me. And it's less, less farm inputs, and it is what it is. And we'll get some good pictures, and hopefully I'll either know that this is not the way to go, or I'll know that I have marketing materials for next time. But also courage in this thing from the professional standpoint is fearless honesty to review what you just did, like, we feel really successful about the farm to table dinner because I made $155 profit, which equates to, for my and my mom's time, if we were one person, it would be $13 an hour, but you can just cut that in half because there were two of us, and that doesn't account for the time the day of. So I made about $3 an hour, basically. But woohoo, right? So, well, that's the first question to ask in the after action report. Is it financially viable? The cool thing is the chef who worked with me, Chef Brett, has run restaurants and understands how to make a profit from food. And so I got to sit with him afterwards because he stayed at Base Camp Lodge in the bedroom there that night because it was late. I was like, so here's the finances. He didn't charge me a lot. We'll start there. What should I have really paid you? He told me the number he should have charged, but he was charging me a friend amount. And what do we need to do to make it so we both make that amount? And his first statement was more people. Now, here my challenge is, I think that more than 20 people, so we did 14, so it'd be 6 more people, more than 20 people total would be problematic from a flow standpoint. Just also, one of the things that was great about the dinner is people got to talk to each other. We had people in individual tables instead of one big long one. So spatially, I can fit more people in there if I just build a custom table. And then it's like the long table. Well, when you have a long table like that, you can only talk to the few people around you, and it can get awkward. And if somebody turns to this person to their left and ignores the person to their right the whole time, it's possible to have a single person who nobody ever talks to the whole time. When you're in 4 tops and 6 tops, you may still not be talked to at all, but it's very likely you will be involved in a conversation. And to me, a big part of what we do is connect people and help them have opportunities to develop long-term connections and real world relationships, right? So then I was like, well, what if we did heats of people? What if we did 2 sets of 20? That would, be one long day for all of us, but then we wouldn't have to try to fit 40 people in one giant farm to table dinner, which then turns into a thing that is not conducive to the numbers I want for the connections to be made, right? And we were like, okay, but if there was something to do between the 2 heats, like you come and you eat and these people are doing the thing, and then we wrap up and you start doing the thing, and then they come and eat. So the thing could be a wild edible walk. It could be, I don't know what, but there's an activity that's part of it. That would work really well and make that flow naturally. So you're not like giving somebody stink eye about getting out of their table, right? We got to reset that table and put the next people in. So what I did was put the farm to table dinner through the homestead revenue stacker, which we've been talking about, multiple ways of making money on your homestead so that it becomes viably profitable for you, so that you're not forced to work 2 full-time jobs, your homestead job and your other job that pays for your homestead hobby job, right? So some other ways, though, for financial viability will come up as part of that stack. That's what I thought would happen anyway. And it started with, what's the product, right? Because the top of the pyramid is the product. Well, the dinner is a service, not a product. So if you think about it, the farms are the product. One of those farms that we used is my farm. So I sold my meat to the dinner. Like I didn't pay for the meat because it's in the same business, but I paid for the meat in the budget. Like I included a line item for what my vegetable and meat contributions were for that. And then the other farmers sold product to the dinner. For them, it wasn't a lot of product. Like that's not bringing tons of revenue for any of us for a dinner of that size, but it brings awareness that the farm exists. So for them, it's also a marketing opportunity. Okay, so I wonder if I could get farm sponsors to reduce the cost at least, because I don't believe we should be doing this for free. I do believe everybody should get paid, but do they get a payoff can we make it attractive from a marketing perspective that they'd be willing to reduce their cost, right? So that's the first thing. The dinner itself is a service. It's an experience you get to go have, right? And we could pair that with another service, a class. Think about this. Anybody who's growing their own food or wanting to tap into whole foods and then doesn't know how to prepare it would potentially be interested in a pre-dinner class where a chef is walking us through how to cook all these things that we're going to eat tonight. That gets me some help in producing the dinner as well, right? So, what would that be worth? What would that be worth for somebody to do as an add-on? And then could we record it and make that something that's scalable that we can sell in the future? Some lessons on how to produce the things that are seasonal in the fall. Other ideas I had for the scalable section, because then we're on to the next thing. What do you have that's scalable, recurring revenue? Digital productions of a class like that would be one. Recipes, subscription-based access to recipes, to farm-to-table dinner recipes and other things going direct all the way from scratch, perhaps produced a little bit more robustly than my current recipe of the week are, could be something that people are interested in. Or a membership that gives you access to that resource, plus maybe reduced price on rentals on the property, or access to a monthly webinar where we talk about those things. Ian says, cookbook. I have a cookbook. I should have totally had some for sale there. And actually, I think I still have some to sell. I really want to sit down and release the next edition of that cookbook. But absolutely, Ian, a cookbook, the Farm to Table cookbook. And one of the things about farm to table cooking is you don't get to make up recipes where you're using things from different seasons unless it's something that's frozen or canned, right? If it's not fresh, then you're using something preserved, and then you have to use it in its preserved format, which for my chef friends makes them crazy about green beans, because my green beans are not al dente when they are out of a jar, right? But how do we make that taste good? That's what that's the difference, right? Is when you're going down this road, you learn how to make those things taste better. So there could be some membership options, videos, recipes. I thought about commissions. Like, what if we had on site a way to sign up for a subscription box at Hot Grid Meat Company? I don't even know if they have a subscription box. I don't think they do actually right now, but maybe they do. And then they're like, okay, for every subscription box that you sell, you get X dollars back to the Holler Hub, right? So those sorts of things could work out really well. Or if somebody signs up for Coffee of the Month at Holler Roast while they're there, boom, there's a commission that could be put there. Letty says, I would love a cookbook on how to cook with what's available seasonally. Here's the interesting thing, Letty, what's available seasonally there is going to be a little different than here too. So my Cook With What You Have book is based on that, because the baby carrot peas combination with milk that was so popular in Oregon, which can happen in Oregon, is hard to make happen here for me. My carrots are never quite big enough before the peas tell me to pound sand for the year, like the sugar snap peas. So, but that's, that just means we need more collaborators on what's in season in Wisconsin in April. Because what's in season in Wisconsin in April is very different than what's in season in Tennessee in April. So, yeah, those are cool things. A door just opened. Interesting. Did a cat just come in? I don't know. That was very weird. Somebody opened the door and interrupted my podcast, and now they feel guilty. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so then the foundation of the homestead revenue stack is community, and this is about maintaining relationships. Is it about monetization? It's more about social capital than capital, because when you have the social capital, you're believable for the other things that you bring to the table. But sometimes people pay for community experiences, and the interesting thing about the farm to table dinner is it was both a service and a community experience. People got to meet people they'd never met before. We connected Roots Resources with people who are interested in wild edible walks, for example. And I'm pretty sure I connected him with a regenerative beef farm near him, who was one of the attendees at the dinner. So this is cool. Like, the attendees of the dinner bring things to the table. Like, we had Persimmons brought in Carrie's like, I have these persimmons. You should serve them. So we did. And then another attendee had some of her homemade honey that she put out to go with the bread, right? That just was pop-up stuff that happened. That is harder to accommodate if you are feeding 80 or 100 people versus a group of 16 to 20 people where somebody can say, I make this barbecue sauce. Here, everybody try it, and that part of the dinner to me was my favorite part because, we discovered people we'd never met who have similar priorities to us, who wanted to share the abundance they've created as well. Right? So that community piece was really cool. And then off of the community piece, we talk about what add-ons can we do. Like I had the country store or the general store set up in the corner and it was hard to get to. And we had some things for sale there. I had some custom made wax/oil for cutting boards that Tactical has started producing. And I didn't say anything about it to people. Part of what was happening is I was explaining the dinner as we went, but I found that people were talking with each other so much I didn't want to interrupt. So I needed to have a way to tell the story without interrupting people. I think a slideshow could do it, or I could just do a kickoff at the beginning and say it, or maybe a more tightly written script. I don't know. That's another thing I think needs to improve as we move forward, because as I was serving tables, I was explaining what the food was that they were experiencing and where it came from. We had a little handout for them too, that was the menu and a QR code so they can get the recipes, which will totally be up as soon as my new site launches. I told them, I said, we're in the middle of a launch. Website launches can be unpredictable. So I'm hoping it's up tomorrow, but if it's not up tomorrow, then it will be up and I will email you when it happens. But part of the thing about add-ons is they are upsells, and the more upsells you can do at an event like this, like if people could have gone home with like the lamb chop and aioli thing was really cool, and we could have made a little kit with the pine needles needed, how to make aioli as an instruction, because I'm probably not sending you home with all the ingredients for that, and a package of lamb chops for $20 or something or whatever. I don't know, probably about $20. That would have been really cool. And that kind of upsell is neat. And if we had been able to upsell some of the Off the Grid Meat Company products, that would have been neat. We also had the greens from Clean Jeans Farm, and not a good way to connect people to that. So I would like to put more purpose towards that. But also I could have added the cabin rental. Like people see the inside of Base Camp Lodge, go, wow, this is amazing. Maybe when my relatives are in town, I want to tap into a week here. And if there's not a class going on, then we can totally do that for you. We did put it in the handout, but I want to have some, like maybe some things on the wall for sure. The thing I did wrong, and this is the after action report, right? This is where we need to be fearless about what went wrong. I had coffee for sale and chocolate covered espresso bites and whatnot. And somebody bought coffee. Thank you for buying the coffee. I appreciate that. It was hard to get to the area where it was or see what was there or know that it was there. Had we had it in the hallway on the way out, which was full of couches, I think that would have been better, like with maybe some shelves along that wall. And I think what I've decided is we need to build some nice looking shop shelves there and have the store set up there so that people can browse out on the way out. And that means that when we do our next farm to table dinner, because the couches can't be in the living room when it's full of tables, we're just gonna have to put up like a 12 by 12 tent and put the couches out under the tent in case it rains. And that's where they are. And I believe they will go out the sliding glass door a little easier than shoving them in the back room where we also used for staging. So that was my revenue stack assessment. As I was talking to Brett, he's interested in doing 4 more, or he's like, if you have guest chefs, you want to like switch out the chef, that could be really cool too, because different chefs have different followings. I will say this honestly, it was really hard to sell tickets. And once people saw what it was, I mean, anybody who bought a ticket to this was happy, because we went above and beyond on purpose, and we always will for this. That's the point. That's why I have a ticket price where it's at, right? It may go up next year, but it was at $125 this year. when I ran, I mean, like if I hadn't had it that high, we would have lost our noses on this one. So the deal with that, and it was BYO liquor. Like if you wanted wine or beer or anything, you brought your own, and a couple people did, and that's, not discouraged at all. It's just that I don't want to deal with liquor licensing, which it's a totally different world if I serve alcohol at these things. And I think a lot of the people there weren't like, they didn't want to drink a bunch of wine and then drive 2 hours home. People came from 2 hours away to come to this thing. People talked about coming from other states to come to this thing. And I think so. Some of the people didn't come because of the date. Some of the people saw the price and they were like, well, why don't I go to this other dinner for $75 that's buffet style and mostly Cisco, but it has one featured farm? Well, because that's a different experience, right? So anyway, after experiencing this dinner, we're going to get the schedule out for next year in advance. So it's far enough in advance and we can, assess how it goes. But it's a go for it moment. Like my after action, like big picture takeaway is we need to be better at selling tickets. And getting better at selling tickets, I think, means partnering more closely with the farms we're working with. Off the Grid Meat Company really stepped up and pushed hard for us on this one. And because of them, we got some ticket sales. Like I can attribute ticket sales to them specifically. And I can attribute ticket sales to this podcast specifically. And more of the local network, not so much. Which it either means people aren't interested here, they haven't heard about us enough, or they simply didn't see it, or the date was bad, or the price was wrong for them, right? Like those are the things that can be gone. So that was the revenue assessment. The other thing that we know is logistics. Like, how did logistics go? I know when the sun sets. I scheduled this dinner months in advance with the plan that we would start at 5:30 at about sunset. And before that, we would have a wild edible walk starting at 4:30. And guess what? The sun sets half an hour earlier in the hauler because we're a hauler. So the wild edible walk started at, it started at 4:15, thank goodness. Because Carrie was like, man, we're burning daylight. We got to go. Like he could see the crash coming, right? He was like, when the sun goes down, it gets dark here fast, Nicole. I was like, yep. And he had to end by about 5 o'clock, which was half an hour early for dinner. Now, dinner was ready to go. So that wasn't really a problem. But the people who did not come to the wild edible walk thought dinner was starting at 5:30. So they got here when they got here. Our first course was served buffet style, and it was an appetizer, like charcuterie platter with the seared off lamb. And so what we did was we put the charcuterie and the bread out and then kind of held off on searing the lamb chops till about 5:15. So right as they were coming out, the last guests showed up, right? So that was sort of a reality versus my plan. And now I know when the sun really sets. And I hope Alan Booker listens to this because he can laugh at me because I already knew that. I just didn't consider it when I was scheduling this back in the summer where the sun didn't set, till a gajillion o'clock. So adding to how to plan a farm to table dinner, be aware of what sunset is. And if you have an activity before that and your dinner starts after sunset, you need to have a plan. Also, on that note about logistics is a check-in area would have been helpful so we could mark people off because there was 1 or 2 times where I'm like, I mean, it's not that many people to keep track of, right? Who are you? And are you supposed to be here? And, those sorts of things. Never had to ask anybody that question. Like they all told me their names, but it would be, I think, better for somebody to check somebody off a list so we don't have any surprises. And I did have one surprise, but it was fine. I was ready for a surprise. So we took care of that. So then also the venue, Base Camp Lodge, has a stove we bought it new. It's been there for like 4 years now, 5 years. And I already knew from the canning class, there's this one burner that it's either on or it's off. And I pointed out to Brett, I'm like, if you just want to sear something, that's your burner. But if you want to simmer it, don't use it. And then, of course, We who cook a lot prefer gas, but it's an electric stove. So like once the burner's hot, boy, is it hot. Um, well, Brett also pointed out that if we want to serve more people, we need a better oven or a bigger oven. He said this is about as many people. So he served 18, total, even though there was 14 seated. He was like, if we do more, we either have to heat the food differently or we need a different oven. Okay, good point. I've been wanting to upgrade base camp to gas the whole time, but also having a food warmer, you heat it and then put it in the warmer for the baked things like the mashed potatoes or whatever. That would be a really good add-on that would expand the capacity for us to do what we want to do in that space. Now, we also had a Blackstone outside that he could cook on, and that worked well. Tactical actually just scored a bigger Blackstone for $20. Like Sunday. He went and got it Sunday. He saw it online, talked to the guy. He's like, I think that guy would have given it to me for free. So now we have even more Blackstone cooking capacity, which is kind of cool. So that's something we would not have realized had we not done this event until we did this event. And I'd rather discover it when I was purposely keeping head count lower than I thought we could handle, because that's the other thing. Doing something like this, starting lower head count, better, because then you have more room if something goes weird. From an experiential flow, I thought a lot about like what happens when people get there. How are we set up? How are they going to get drinks? Two things. The drink station needs to be probably labeled drink station and very clear that you can get your own drinks. People figured it out. I said it, but it was also like you kind of had to get around stuff to get to the drinks, A. And B, when you arrive and walk into a room that's all tables and nowhere to hang out, which is because it was all tables, that led to everybody looking kind of like we're not ready to sit down. We're supposed to go on a wild edible walk, but then also they couldn't just stand around and talk. And so I think for the next one, we'll have an outdoor check-in area where people could stand around, or we'll have a stand around area more clearly set up inside Base Camp Lodge. Depending on the time of year, they don't need to be inside necessarily. Like this time of year, I didn't know if it was going to be 18 degrees outside or 78 degrees outside, and we had perfect weather. Like it was mid 60s, warm. I was running the air conditioning the whole time for that dinner inside. So it was because with the oven on, of course, it gets warmer. The financial fixes I've already talked about, but I also think there is that premium experience add-on that can happen, right? And putting the chef on the wild edible walk would be awesome too. But like if that's happening right before the dinner, they need to be chefing. But I realized like he knows about wild edible stuff because he's interested in that. But as I was walking with Carrie and he was talking about different plants, A, I learned some new plants, but B, I thought, oh man, this is how we could build that into a pesto, or you could add toasted this to that and it would be delicious. And it was like, for me, because I cook a lot, it was a culinary brainstorming session. And then Carrie would say, oh yeah, this is how I use that. Well, we should make a cookbook about that, Carrie. Just saying. But getting some more chefs on these. And I know from when Chef Ken was here and went on the wild edible walk, he was so excited. He's like, I've never known that about spice bush, or spiceberry. And now I need to try to cook with it. And I'm going to do it right now in front of y'all and serve it to you. Like those, that's really fun. And you think of new ways to learn things. Like I thought, I didn't think about this going in, but we could have totally harvested juniper berries, which are just now ripe here, and used them on the lamb chops because they go great on lamb chops. It in fact has changed my 10 lamb cooking tips email a little bit because I have like a flavor guide and I need to add juniper berries to it. I didn't even think about that at all. So I think the last thing that would be a really good connection for the farm to table dinner would be having the Holler Hub buying club up so that you do the farm to table dinner. You can buy this stuff and we can help you learn how to cook with the stuff and pick it up here once a week. For the people driving 2 hours, not so interesting. For the people who came there from Sparta, maybe more interesting. right? From the people who came there from my county, a lot more interesting. So that's, I mean, that's what it means to go for it. I would have never had all of these ideas if we wouldn't have just gone for it and, you know, put together the whole dinner. So that's the, I mean, if you wanted the after action report, man, that is the after action report. But we're back to the power of showing up nervous or going for it. Now, I was nervous about this event because I wanted it to go well. There was a moment where everybody was, their bellies were half full. They were all talking and having a good time. And I just took my phone and I made a little video of the happy noises and the happy people. And it was that moment I knew I'd made the right decision. That's what can happen when you walk out of your comfort zone and just go for it. And the 2 comfort zones I had to let go of, one was a financial one. I had to just make it happen, especially early on when tickets weren't happening. And 2 was a hesitancy to do this because I hadn't done it before. What got me over that was working with Chef Brett, because he could have done that event in his sleep without my help. He let me come in as a partner and do the event with him, which means I got more skills and a much better insight on what we need set up for the next one. And he took the time to talk to me afterwards about, okay, but how do we actually make money on this? And the answer is it's hard. To do the kind of event I want to do, I either need to charge, $250 to $300 a person, or I need to put more people in, or I need to find sponsors, or I need to find other ways to bring revenue into the event. And part of my mission is to connect people with the food. So I don't want to necessarily price people out. So that's something that will continue to spin in the background as we go into 2026. But then guess what happened? In a wonderful timing situation, I was already aware that there was a county rulemaking meeting yesterday night. So farm to table dinner was Saturday, Sunday exhausted, Monday local politics. Wah, wah. So what's been happening in my county all year this year is that they have been going down a road that I watched different counties in Oregon go down as I was growing up, and then lived as, my early adult years there till I was in my 30s. I lived through what happened as a result of that. And because I was working in public policy, I had a deeper insight into what was happening with the zoning and the codes. And what happened is that rural areas were ruined because of 2 things. One is when neighbors decide that it is in their power to tell you what you can do on your property, that's a cultural shift. And that happens when you have zoning, because they can say, well, you're agricultural and what you're doing is not agricultural. You have a fabrication shop. Well, anybody who works in agriculture knows that you need a fabrication shop, or you need to mix feed, or you may need to roast coffee, or you may need, who knows? I don't even know all the things. Woodworking, lots of different things that may not seem agricultural that are agricultural. And one of the big ones is agritourism, right? So I watched this explode in my county earlier this year. I watched them the commission passed the County Powers Act, which I really wish they hadn't done. And they passed it because it was spun as a response to a rock quarry coming in, and some people are upset about a data center being built. And the idea was you pass the County Powers Act, and then we can do zoning, and then we can tell them they need a special permit, and then we can say no. And then they go away. Well, that didn't happen. But also, and I probably should have stepped up sooner. I have not stepped into any of the politics here because I come from another state. And I'm careful about local knowledge, local history, and I don't know what I don't know. And yeah, having some random stranger come in and say blah 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 can be weird. Also, I worked in public policy for 14 years, and so I've spent a lot of time researching, working on land use planning, what works, what doesn't work, like looking at case studies, and how do you navigate rapid growth, which we're starting to experience here, and still preserve the way of life of a rural community without putting in the kinds of controls they're talking about. And like the nationally accepted standard is zoning and codes. That's what it is. And that's a success of the people who want to set up the kind of power structures that can then later be abused by those in power. I don't actually think that's the motivation of anybody in my county leadership. I started going to meetings and listening to what they were saying, and there would be somebody saying, well, okay, so like the solution from this county is that. And then another person would say, but we have a lot of people in our community who are low income. And if we do that, then we may cause them to lose their land, or they may not be able to keep their families close, or whatever it is. And so then they come up with a way around it. The fact that they were having that discussion and making decisions counter to the template tells me that the motivations of the leadership is not actually the power abuses that I discussed. Well, then my buddy from a neighboring county, who shall remain nameless right now because I don't think I should be saying exactly what's going on over there, has uncovered exactly the kind of abuses I'm talking about, where people are being told they may not subdivide their land, like families who've been there a long time, because they won't pass a soil perk test. And it's because leadership is saying, don't let that person pass a soil perk test. So that's kind of crooked. And then that makes their land worth less, and they finally sell, and then a developer buys it for cheap. And then all of a sudden, magically, another place is found on the property that will pass a soil perk test. And then they can subdivide it however they want. And then they let them subdivide it counter to their own rules. And then they sell it to people who then can't, like it either ends up with people unable to build or other problems. I suspect a lawsuit could be coming as a result of that situation, but I don't know. And that's an example in the state of some crookedness that's already happening. Well, when I was looking at what was going on here, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I could raise a big stink. I know how to market. I know how to communicate, and I'm pretty good at public policy. But I'm seeing these people in office actually trying to do the right thing, and getting people thrown out of office in that situation after the County Powers Act has already passed, for who are trying to do the right thing, is maybe not the best choice, because who comes in after them? Not usually the person trying to do the right thing, right? So I became aware at Jack Spirko's that I was going to probably have to start going to meetings and actually saying something at said meetings. Now, you guys have seen me very confidently walk in front of rooms full of 1,000 or more people and talk and present. And I don't look nervous, do I? So last night, I go to a meeting having prepared a just sort of like, here's what I'm seeing, here's my background, here are 3 things I think you should consider as you make these rules. And I worked with Alan Booker to tap into, because they've already passed the codes, they've already chosen codes, and in that in the ICC codes, which they're doing, they're using a piece of those. There is the capacity to add an engineering exception, meaning if properly researched and certified that your solution that's quote unquote outside the code is as safe or safer than the intent of that section of the code, you automatically get approved and don't have to go through a lot of BS to get approved, basically, for the thing you want to do. Okay. Having that in there opens us up for innovation and allows the natural building innovations that are happening to happen. Not having that in there gets you more stuck into the cookie cutter stick built buildings, which is just sort of stagnant and more related to, these are the big corporations who have figured out how to optimize lumber production or drywall production or whatever. And So these codes are written for them and shall never change. Well, then maybe they'll change, but it's not easy to change things once it's done. So I wanted to get that suggestion across immediately. And then luckily, some of the counties in Tennessee have done it. So then I could also say, and these counties have done it. Like, I'm not telling you to do some crazy hippie thing. Like, I'm talking about, incentives of our building inspector based on how he's paid seem like, he may not abuse it, but somebody in the future might. To the adding that exception to the building code so that we can foster innovation and preserve. One of the things that happens here is you have mansions next to poorer people, and people get along and neighbors help neighbors, and it's not utopia, and we do have crime, but we have less crime than a lot of places, even though we're getting pressure from Cookeville growing and McMinnville growing and Nashville growing. And that's partially because when people are able to stay in place and are able to own, they care. It can also mean that your problem person owns, but that's actually not as bad as if it's all just transient, blah, blah, right? So I watched that happen in Oregon too. And then my third thing was to reconsider the zoning that they're doing. So the Planning Commission has recommended zoning, and they've already drawn up the county and what they want where, and the way they've defined my house is probably not something I would object to, except for that I've seen that definition in my home state of Oregon be used to help. It's like you get zoned agricultural and then you lose your farm because you can't do anything with your farm that you need to do, like add a house so that your sons or daughters can help you with your farm as you age, right? If you look at Polyface, it's a multi-generational farm. At one point, they had 4 generations on it. I think right now they have 3. And that's instrumental to how their success has happened, is because they're not all up in each other's faces in one house. Everybody has their spot, but also they can help each other. So I know that as Joel's mother has been aging, she's literally right there, and somebody can be there to help her the whole time. And that's been important, but also it's allowed him to stay on the farm and take care of the farm and not like have to put her in a home, for example. So, and I said, so anyway, so I got up and testified about that. And I only had Monday to prepare this because with the farm to table dinner, I was too tired Sunday to even think about it. And then it was Monday, and Monday is Monday. And I also have choir Monday. So, I got nervous. Like at the end, they let you talk. I got nervous and my voice sounded emotional, and I might have almost cried if I'm honest. It wasn't my usual presentation style. We'll just put it that way. And as the feelings were happening, like emotional feelings, I was like, wow, I'm going to cry in front of a room of 6 people or 8 people or however many. It wasn't that many people. That was the funny part. There wasn't even anybody there. But I walked out of there thinking, man, I blew it. But I had the courage to stand up and be vulnerable and share. And then as I overanalyzed it, like one does, I realized probably the fact that I showed that emotion made what I had to say more powerful. Because actually, what I was talking about matters to me. It matters to me for a few reasons. One, this is my home now. I've been here 17 years, almost 18 years. And I moved here because I can't live like this in Oregon anymore. It's very hard to live like this there. This county allows that for so many people. And I would love for additional people to be able to live this way without pushing the people out who already live this way, right? So that matters. It matters to me from a freedom standpoint where if we encourage or foster a culture of tattletaling, more people will tattletale. I've already seen it happen here, where the minute you can tattle, like tattling happens. And the general response in this county to tattling is like, oh, come on, man. Like, does that really matter to you? Go talk to the neighbor. Don't go send the police to the neighbor, right? There are times when you need more help than that. But in general, if somebody's loud and they're not a jerk, you can say like, hey, so like at 9:00, could you turn your stereo down? And if they're a decent neighbor, they will, right? Or whatever. I mean, that's just a problem that can happen. So it just put me out of my comfort zone. It made me realize I need to do that type of speaking more. Also, I needed to prepare better. Like, I speak better from bullets than from a script. I wrote a script because I wanted to make sure I would keep it under 3 minutes, and I did. But mom says I spoke a little faster than she'd like. Um, being involved in important local matters, standing up for what you believe in, standing up for food freedom, standing up for your community is probably the only way I can think that I would want to be involved in politics, or the only way I think you can make a difference in your community for food, for farmers. And right now, Don Gorm's doing the same thing with raw milk on the other side of the state, right? We need to support each other when we do this, but also be willing to go out of your comfort zone, because everybody I know who's getting any message through to on their local community starts with that first step they take where they go for it. Talk to people who they don't usually need to talk to, maybe in a setting that makes them uncomfortable, maybe in a setting that makes their voice warble a little bit. My voice warbled last night. Maybe that is the right choice. Maybe that does mean it makes a difference. So I think courage is action. Showing up nervous is the first thing you can do to make a difference in your life and in the life of your people in your community. It's not the absence of fear. Courage is just willing to face your fear and go on anyway, right? You're never really ready to start. You're never really ready to do public speaking for the first time. You're never really ready to have your 3-minute talk at the end of a community meeting. But if you're fearless about starting and willing to be vulnerable and willing to be nervous and do it anyway, I think you get a lot further. So this week, go for it, man. Audit your side hustle or your homestead project. Use the revenue stack framework and see, like, honestly, how are we doing here? Are there opportunities I'm missing that I'm able to do with my time? Be honest about where you need to price up. Be honest about if you need to drop something. And then go for those hard conversations you know you need to have. Like, I've been writing in my journal, not every day, but just about every day. And yesterday I started with, as I write this, the 2 things that are weighing on my mind are 1 and 2, had nothing to do with what actually needed to be done. I'm going to do these things before I continue to write in this journal. That's what I did. And I stopped and I did those 2 things. And because I did those 2 things, today was a lot easier, right? So if you have hard conversation you need to have, or if you have a local matter that maybe you are, like, maybe I am perfectly positioned to be involved in my county as they put the County Powers Act in, because I've seen how it can go wrong. And I know that we could be a template for doing this in a way that doesn't become so corrupted that we spiral out again and cause a bigger crash in this county than it's. I've seen it go through a few crashes in my time here. So your passion's more powerful than silence. That's the real lesson, right? And then take your first small step if you've been thinking about doing something. One small specific step you can take today to move towards your bigger goal. Whether that be learning a skill about homesteading, whether that be defining what your goal is, 1 step a day. And if you really want to go into overdrive, then join the My 3 Things group on Telegram, and we'll start talking to you about your 3 things. I've even got a webinar about it, right? So, because sometimes you just need to go for it, and going for it means taking that first step. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Good things are about to come on the membership portal. Our next member webinar will be December 9th, which is a Tuesday. I think it might be a Wednesday. Anyway, December 9th, and it's titled, So You Bought a Whole Pig, Huh? So we're going to talk about what you do when you purchase a whole animal and then you're faced with the cut sheet, how to make decisions about how to keep the processing costs down versus your time for turning some of those things into delicious meat once it gets home. One thing you can do is not have them make your bacon. You can make your own bacon, man. It doesn't take that much time. But if you don't want to, then pay them to make the bacon. But then you're not getting your pig. You're getting somebody else's pig because bacon needs to cure for a certain amount of time. Anyway, that's going to be the webinar on December 9th. With that, go out, make it a great week.